Thanks, Councillor. I'll let you know when we're live.
You know.
We're live.
Thank you and good morning. Welcome to the Scrutiny performance. People, I'm William J. Rapley, your chairman this morning. It is the 24th of January 2023 on this very cold morning. I have to read this out before we even do anything at all. This Scrutiny Committee meeting is being conducted on a hybrid basis in accordance with the Local Government Electoral Act of 2021. I'd like to remind members that the meeting is live streamed to the public, so I'd ask you to switch off your cameras and mute your microphones. That's those of you who are at home. Obviously, you can't do it if you're here. When you're not speaking, ensure that there's no unnecessary noise backgrounds. And for all members, standing orders and code of conduct will apply at all time. This virtual meeting is the same as any ordinary meeting. Can I also remind members to ensure those who are at home that their chat function is switched on and that they use the facility to indicate to me when they wish to speak on a particular item. Please do not speak until you're invited to do so, and remember to unmute your microphones and switch on the camera. As well as being live broadcast, the recorded version of the meeting will be uploaded to the Council's website for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting. Welsh translations will be provided upon request, and the images and sounds recordings may be used for training purposes within the Council. Thank you very much indeed. Item 1, apologies. Do we have any?
No apologies from you, Chair.
No apologies. Item 2, declarations of interest. We have none at the moment. Then, if you find any during the course of the meeting, just inform us, or indeed even after. We go now to the minutes of the previous meeting on pages 3 to 16. Does anybody have anything to raise on those minutes? Okay. Do we have a mover? Seconder? Thank you. We now move to page 25. Item 4, sorry, which starts at page 17, but we're going to pick up the report on page 27. And so we need the table. Thank you. Take this through. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Chair. Morning all. So for those who don't know me, I'm Robert Green, Assistant Head of Finance. So before you sort of start looking at the individual proposals from the respective service areas, I'm just going to give an overview of process followed to date in terms of getting to a point of public consultation with next year's budget, and also sort of highlight some of the key figures either in the report that have come to light subsequent to the report being published and considered by Cabinet back in December. In terms of the structure, I'll do it fairly chronologically. In essence, it will just pick out those kind of key points from within the Cabinet report, which you've obviously got as part of today. Okay, so in terms of where we began this process, so just under a year ago, obviously Council set the 22-23 revenue budget for the year. And as part of that, we identified a medium-term outlook, and for 23-24 at that point, we were looking at a fairly modest budget gap of circa £2 million. But obviously since then, an awful lot's happened, and happened very quickly, and it's completely turned that position on its head. And so, you know, as everyone will be aware, we're obviously now in an environment of high inflation, and that is causing a number of different pressures to emerge and putting in place pressure on the Council's budget looking forward. So that includes things like energy costs, which are obviously all aware of and potentially experiencing, pay in particular, both in terms of the pay award that has been issued this financial year, which we did not provide fully for, because it was obviously higher than I think anyone would have expected when we set the budget a year ago. But also then looking forward to paying to future years as well, being probably higher than we would have initially assumed. So they're the kind of two main inflation elements, but obviously there is a knock-on impact there. So I've talked just now about the costs that we as a council incur directly. Obviously there is an aspect to do with our suppliers as well. So where we contract, say, a third party to deliver a service on our behalf in areas such as social care, those same pressures are being experienced by those providers and will ultimately be passed on to us. So that's something we have to factor into our budget plans. So what it really means is taking that inflation into account, and then also taking into account the demand for our services. So two particular areas where that is particularly acute, but generally there is an increased demand for services. Obviously there's a lot in the news and the media and from government in terms of the cost of living crisis. So the fallout from that and from the pandemic is driving up demand for the services. Two particular areas are homelessness, and you'll see within the pack there's a significant pressure being identified in relation to homelessness provision, and that really follows on the Welsh Government's directive during the COVID pandemic to try and ensure there are no rough sleepers within Newport, in our case, but within Wales. So that pressure on its own is about 3.5 million. But also you'll see that there's significant pressure in relation to social services and in particular emergency placements within children's services. So those two elements adding a significant amount of pressure onto our budget and our medium-term outlook. So for reference, probably the best way to sort of demonstrate that is within the pack. I think it's page 30 of your pack. There's table 1, which just sets out that change in position. So you'll see that from March 22, we had a budget gap of about 1.9 million, and the updated outlook, which mainly be to do with the change in pressures, amounts to £26 million increase. So at the point that Cabinet considered the budget report before going to consultation, there was a revised budget gap of about 27.5 million. So it's wholly different from where we were a year ago, and that took account even of the increase proposed around council tax. So our base assumption for council tax is an increase of 4%. As you'll be aware, Cabinet have consulted on an increase of 9.5%. So that 27 million already takes that increase into account. So actually the budget gap before that was more like sort of 30 to 33 million. So a significant budget gap, far exceeds anything that's had to be faced in the last few years in particular, but probably anything going back over the last 10 years and through that austerity period. So that was the position that was taken to the Cabinet meeting and what formed the basis of Cabinet's deliberations and then ultimately what they consulted on. So a budget gap of 27 million, and obviously, and this is something that you'll need to say, service areas were then asked to identify savings proposals. So there are savings proposals being put forward and being consulted upon across all services. About 11.5 million of savings proposals in total, roughly half of which are parts of the public consultation and half of which are can be implemented by head of service under delegated authority. So they are not parts of the public consultation, but they're included in papers for transparency and so the public can see what those proposals are. But even with those savings proposals, that only took the gap down to about 16 million. So the point at which Cabinet considered the report and agreed to go to consultation on the proposals that they are consulting on, there was still a budget gap of 16 million. The council, as all councils are legally required to set a balanced budget, so clearly still a long way from that balanced budget position. So that was the point reached at the Cabinet meeting, or in advance of the Cabinet meeting. As you'll probably be aware, on the date of the Cabinet meeting itself, the 14th of December, that was the date that the Welsh Government announced the draft local government settlement for 23-24, at which point all councils within Wales found out what their core funding allocation is likely to be next year. And again, as you'll most likely be aware, we'd been assuming as our kind of base assumption, based on the indicative outlook the Welsh Government themselves gave us last year, we were working on a 3.5% increase basis. As it transpired, the increase that all councils will receive on average is about 7.9% and Newport 8.9% by virtue of benefiting from the population increases within the locality, which means that in effect we get a larger share of the pie that's available. So that was clearly a positive announcement relative to our assumptions, and that added, or that announcement would need an additional 11.7 million in core funding for the council. Obviously, even taking the 16 million position gap that was discussed and deliberated on the 14th of December, that still wouldn't balance the budget. And coupled with that, there's also a need to review some of the assumptions that we have been making around payables for next year. A bit like this year, as we go through the year, it becomes more and more apparent that next year's payables are likely to be higher than we potentially assumed. So we're currently, and this is what the figures are predicated on, we're currently working on the basis of 4% payable for NJC staff and a 3.5% payable for teaching staff, which would take effect from September 23. I think it's fair to say that those assumptions are probably on the low side now, especially with everything that's going on in terms of teachers' pay. So over the next few weeks, as we work towards the February cabinet meeting, those assumptions are under review. So it's not as simple as saying, well, it's a £60 million gap. We've had 11.7 million extra funding, so we're about sort of 4 or 5 million short. It's not quite straightforward as that. The other point to outline is on that same day, so at the cabinet meeting, you'll probably be aware that cabinet announced their intention around schools in terms of what they were looking to consult on. So a proposal was put forward, and this is within the consultation for schools to receive a cash increase, but to be asked to absorb 50% of the pressures in relation to pay and 100% of pressures in relation to things like energy. The council would fully fund any increases associated with pupil number growth. So that is also now out to consultation. You'll be aware that figures weren't quoted in that consultation, and that's mainly because of those reviews that are referred to around pay, because whatever figures were quoted at that point will be subject to change. So it's more of a principle that's being consulted on as opposed to a cash amount. But obviously the increase from March and those reviews all sort of go into the mix, and they're being reviewed now in the coming weeks so that Cabinet can reach a final decision to propose for their meeting on the 15th of February. Yeah, I think that's basically the overview. Obviously, as you're aware, the consultation is underway. It's before Christmas. It's due to conclude on 2nd of February. And as I mentioned, Cabinet consider their final proposal on the 15th and full council, who are ultimately responsible for approving the rate of council tax, and the sort of overall budget will be considering that on the 28th of February. And we expect final settlement from Marsh Government in early March. The fact that that comes after the council meeting isn't a massive issue because Marsh Government have, as they have in recent years, given an assurance that there won't be, shouldn't be any change, certainly won't be a significant change between draft settlement and final settlement, so we can plan with confidence around our core settlement from Marsh Government.
Thank you, Roger, for that. Okay. Initially, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, you mentioned, and everybody is aware of the inflation at the moment. The forecast, however, over the next 2 or 3 years is much lower than that. So do you see the situation improving as to forecast for outcomes coming to local authorities and even Welsh government?
I think, yeah, in terms of inflation, yeah, you're right, and our external advisors on areas like Treasury are saying the same thing, that ultimately the hope and the expectation is that inflation will return to something more similar to closer to the target, which is generally 2%. I think the important point is that whilst it is set to reduce, it's not set to become negative. So the price increases that we've experienced are basically here to stay. It's just that from that point forward, our prices won't increase at such a significant rate. So in terms of the cost side of things, yes, the increase in prices should steady, but they're not likely, or we're not working on the basis that they will return to levels sort of say a year ago. I think energy is slightly more uncertain because there's obviously quite significant external factors at play there, because that's such an unknown in terms of the outcome of the ongoing rate. it's hard to make an assumption that those prices will come down. In terms of funding, yeah, obviously with high inflation, with high paywalls, UK government should be collecting more tax. Will that necessarily find its way to Welsh Government and to local authorities? I don't think we can guarantee that. I think when the Chancellor made his autumn statement a couple of months ago, there was a strong indication or hint that whilst they were giving cash increases at this point, there was a potential that they may have to take a harder position in future years. So maybe in a couple of years, for example, could actually there be funding reductions, cash reductions, which would be worse than the real terms reductions that we're experiencing now. Obviously, if that was the case, that we may have costs stabilising on the one side, but then we'd have a funding challenge similar to the period of austerity. So I think it's important to highlight that this doesn't feel like a single year challenge. It feels like a challenge that will be there for the entirety of the medium term, initially driven by cost increases, but then potentially driven by funding decreases. But obviously that isn't confirmed, that's just an indication at this point.
You mentioned about Ukraine, that the effect of that situation has on the government. At the end of the day, that's only minimal, isn't it? It's a very small percentage. You don't get a great deal from that. It's just the effect throughout Europe and the world that we're getting the effect of. Yeah,
and I think it's not just energy as well. I think I'm right to say that some of the food inflation is driven by Ukraine. So I think Ukraine's one of the big grain suppliers, for example. So it is having an impact across different sort of different supplies, and it's not just energy. In terms of the support that we as the council receive to support and the hosting of Ukrainians who have fled Ukraine, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, that is a huge, as a percentage, it wouldn't be a huge percentage in terms of public spending, but yeah, that wider economic impact does seem to be there, and is generally supported by the so-called experts and our advisors in terms of that being a driving factor. Of course, it's so uncertain in terms of knowing how that will get resolved.
Thank you. Can I just remind you, Rob, that we're not here to deal with assumptions and going forward with you on what may or may not occur. We're here to look at where we are right here, right now. The assumptions are assumptions, and they could be right, they could be absolutely wrong. So please don't introduce assumptions as to where we are. It's difficult enough as it is. Thank you.
Chair, I'm pleased that you mentioned lots of figures and where these figures have come from. But I represent the residents, and the residents are hurting. Yeah, okay, it's your job to handle figures, and you rightly pointed out that funding for council budget comes from the Welsh Government and originally from Westminster Government, where the funding is short of what is needed now to look after inflation and the inflation and these are facts. And so you've rightly pointed that out, and I thank you for doing that, because Welsh Government can't give any more money than they're having from Westminster Government. But it's these cuts are having and will have an effect on people in the street that I represent, and they are in pain, and it pains me to have to listen to this and to have to agree to some of it.
We must be careful not to. This is a very heated moment of time. And remind all members that we are not here. It's very hard not to become political. It's very hard. But we are here to scrutinise and to advise Cabinet on where they should cut, and even where they should not even tread to cut. And I allow you to go on because I feel the emotion in you, and I simply don't want to go down there, because it takes us away from our fundamental business, unless to scrutinise the plans before us today, the effects, and to help Cabra come to what hopefully is a right and just form decision on behalf of all residents. Do we have any other questions at this moment in time?
Just one comment, Chair.
Yes.
I may have missed it in the report, and Rob did mention the impact of the Ukraine on the British economy at the moment. But there was no mention of Brexit. It seems to be a dirty word at the moment. It's not being discussed, and the impact of Brexit on the economy and the reasons why Brexit is impacting on the economic issues that we're experiencing across the UK. Yeah, I do agree with Trevor. The Ukraine war is having an impact on the British economy, nowhere near as much as Brexit is at the moment.
I don't think, for me, again, I just err on the side of caution, and introducing political stuff here. Yes, you can make political comments as well as I'm concerned. As your chairman, I certainly wouldn't try and stifle you in any way. But we're here to discuss what's before us today, not going off on a Brexit transit or this or that, or a blame game. We have the cards that we have dealt with, and this is going to be hard enough to get through. Are there any other comments?
Can I raise my hand?
I can't see it, Councillor.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, it's just come up for me now, sorry.
Okay, it's just come out. I can't see it on the screen. Thank you, Councillor Amy.
Okay, thank you. I'm just wondering, Chair, whether this is the right point to bring this, or when we looking at the detailed proposals. But as we are in a period of consultation, public consultation on the budget, and schools come under this scrutiny, don't they? So I'm asking, really, have we, or do we have a plans to consult with schools formally about the proposals that we made, or we're making in this budget, in terms of financing only half of the pay related matters? I'm not sure whether this is the right point to bring this point to later on, Chair, but you can advise me, please.
Okay, Rob.
Okay, so Councillor, just for your awareness, so there was a meeting held of the school budget forum last week. So obviously deliberately during the consultation. So in that meeting we talked them through, similar to the overview I gave here in terms of the overall council position, but also obviously because of their specific interest, we talked in a little bit more detail around the school's proposal. Not too much more detail, because there isn't a great deal that can be said. But the purpose of having that meeting with the schools forum, which is obviously a representative group of schools, so you've got head teachers present, you've got school business managers present, I think there may have been trade union members present as well. I think they were invited even if they weren't there. And the forum then has the opportunity to take on that information, deliberate it, and formally input into the consultation should they wish to. So that representative group have been consulted with, but obviously any school is anybody is free to input into the consultation. So should a certain head teacher or school want to submit their own response to the consultation, there's nothing stopping them doing that. But yes, they have had the opportunity to be talked through the budget, so they've got a little bit more understanding around the council's position and the proposals that it pertains to them.
Yeah, so as I understand it, thank you for that. As I understand it, is that I think schools already sort of are being, they sort of financing the extra, because the previous budget, last year's budget, only allowed something like 2% pay related issues, and of course the settlement last September was 5%. So they're already sort of paying for the extra 3% from their own current budgets before this budget. So obviously that is causing them difficulty. Now, can I ask, will that money be sort of refunded to them? You know, will they spending extra now and the last budget? And the other point I wanted to make also is that I couldn't see anywhere within the budget, you know, in relation to schools, the issue of the energy prices, which obviously have gone up a lot. So how were these issues covered in the meeting you referred to last week?
Yeah. So yeah, we talked about the different pressures that schools will potentially be facing next year. Obviously, it is based on a degree of uncertainty and assumptions, because until things like pay awards are agreed, we don't know exactly what they will be. But yeah, they have been talked through that. They understand in terms of Cabinet's proposal, which has been consulted upon, which elements of those pressures are likely to be funded or potentially not funded, i.e. which ones will schools themselves have to absorb. You're obviously right in terms of the fact that schools have had to absorb some of that pressure in year as well. I don't see a situation where they will be refunded for the pressures they've absorbed this year, but what Cabinet will determine is to what extent they want to make good that shortfall on an ongoing basis. So part of their final proposal, you know, as well as looking at pay awards for next year, we'll also look at, well, do they want to, for example, fully fund from 23-24 onwards the difference between the pay awards that came in this year? So it wouldn't make up for the one-off costs absorbed this year, but they could potentially choose to fund it on an ongoing basis, so the schools only had to take the hit once rather than on an ongoing basis. But that's for Cabinet to determine.
Thank you, Rob. Really, thank you for assisting there. These are questions for Sarah Morgan and the head of service there. I know that governing bodies are and have been consulted, and governors are actively encouraged to write in with their observations. So yes, Sarah Morgan, Councillor, is the head of service, as you know, and maybe you could you could address those comments to that head.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. We're going to move down to page 47, the investment report. It starts on 45. It's appendix 1, and it's the investments for people with but really starts on page 1. So we're going through these page by page now. No one else anything.
Chair, I wonder if the head of service want to give any summaries or present any information.
There you are.
Yeah.
And if there's anything you want to, thank you, Rob.
I mean, I think, to be honest, it would probably be most helpful where the councillors would have a number of questions. And I'm not sure that any statement that we can give now will be anything other than a quick overview. So I think it might be useful to go straight into comments and questions from members, if that's okay.
I think that's absolutely right, because we've been here before. Sometimes we get rocked up and just decided to look at this. It's a lovely word, actually, rocked up. I like that word. But okay, thank you. Yes, you're right. Thank you. Thank you, Pat. I don't give you any more money. Why would you like it? Okay, page 47. Anybody have any questions there? On the budget investments?
One question.
Yes.
Overall, can the head of service give some sort of information on what sort of impact this will have on the service itself? just a general, is it going to make it worse? Is it better, or is it going to cut line? How is it going to affect the residents up there?
Some of the, it's just a general overview, isn't it? I'm not quite sure.
Can we just come up with that?
Yes.
I think if some of us take to the table.
So who would you like up first?
Sally, you're the winning. Natalie can join us. And, yeah, the other head.
So do social services?
I think you're going to move that in that direction. Thank you. Thank you, Baz.
Started yet.
That's okay. We're
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. Thank you.
for those patiently waiting at home. We will be with you shortly. We get sorted out page numbers and have every simple thing. Okay, we'll start again at page 47. And it's page 47. So, anybody have any questions on going down page 47? No. Okay, we'll come to you, Trevor, first, and then we come to Jeff.
Thank you, Chair.
General question.
Okay, Jan.
Sorry.
Trevor first, then yourself. Thank you. I'll call you in after Jack. Trevor's going in first, and then we'll come back to you then, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a general question, all of you of the issues which have come to light in regards to what the intentions are. What sort of impact is it going to have out there, the residents of Newport? Not only that, but I believe you have other residents from outside of Newport as well. So I'm wondering whether that's going to really hit them, or are we going to move it, or have we looked at it general of what the outcome is going to be if these
So if I could answer perhaps on behalf of all of social services with that overview. So I think I suppose what I would start with is that what all of us have tried to do is to think about the proposals where we can minimise impact on our citizens and those who are in our city. Now, you will appreciate, as will all members, that is really challenging against the background that Rob has already set and the financial asks of us. And within that, again, you will all be aware that within social care, we are working with the most vulnerable, those who are already struggling. So really, I'm not going to minimise that at all. What I would say is what we've tried to do across children's, adults and prevention and inclusion is look at ways that we can do that. Do these things improve things? No, they don't. I mean, and that I need to be honest with you about that. It is about looking at where we can possibly ameliorate some of the savings that we are looking to make, and how we can think about those going forward, how we can work with partner agencies, how we can work across the councils effectively as we can. They will have impact, and obviously the wider consultation, I mean, obviously we've touched on that already a little with schools. The wider consultations that are ongoing at the moment will highlight some of that impact on individual children, adults and older people indeed. And it's very important that we hear that, and obviously that all of us as officers and cabinet members hear that. So I think the answer to your question is yes, this is challenging. What we have tried to do is look at ways that we can introduce some savings that where we can look at how we ameliorate that impact. Okay.
Are there any other questions on page 47? Oh, yes. So, Councillor Cleverly?
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm concerned about all the shortage of the services increases, which is to be expected after the pandemic that we had. But it mentions here about the Aspire project. Can you shed some light on that, please? It said there's a funding gap.
Caroline will pick that one up.
On page 47.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Caroline will pick that one up. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. The Aspire project are established alternative education establishments across Newport, involving 3 high schools. They've been established for a number of years, and what we are currently looking at is remodelling them, where at the moment, I suppose it's fair to say that how they've been established and managed financially is something of a legacy arrangement. And what we're trying to do is get it into a place where it's more secure, that we've got an identified funding stream in partnership with education and prevention and inclusion. But we are looking at remodelling it. We were in close consultation with Head of Education and the heads of those 3 schools. And we are currently at the stage of looking at an alternative provider that can actually manage and oversee the contract in its entirety. At the moment, it's very much an ad hoc arrangement between education and youth service, and it needs to be a far more robust arrangement. There's lots of budget pressures that are coming into the current arrangement. So what we're trying to do is work through those so that we get to a more stable budget position, and that we can continue with that provision for those 36 children involved. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Okay, and any other items on 47? Yes. $49.
One question on 49, Chair, the ALN transformation of core staffing, and it's to be confirmed in 24-25. Do you know anything at all? Education?
No, this is the ALN. At the moment, core staffing in ALN.
Would you mind joining the team? It's just this time it's not bringing it up there.
We had an issue with sound, that's why we're trying to, sounds like I'm shouting, but I'm not really. It's on, it's on the speaker.
It's not sure that it's been extended.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Councillor, I'm not sure what page you're on.
I'm on 49 at the bottom.
Okay, I've got ALN transformation of core staffing, potential issues at staff critical service authority. At this point in time, we have secured we've got the funding by grant funding to secure that ALN provision at this point in time. However, it's grant dependent. And we know we have grants for next year, but how much we don't know at this current time.
Well, you've got TVCs in 24-25.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Cleverly.
Thank you, Chair. I want to come in on page 49. I'm concerned about the ALN in the schools. I understand there's a reduction of places, and whereabouts they have a new centre at Lamwern School. I think some young people are going to lose their places. Is this correct? Because if so, that's, you know, where are these young people going to be placed?
Come in there. As Clevy, there's no plans to reduce any ALN placements across the city. There's a plan to increase ALN provision through the introduction of a base at Llanwern. But the children who are currently accessing internal provision that the school is supporting, funding for that will continue via the normal methodology. In no way will those learners be displaced by the introduction of the LRB at the school.
Thank you very much. That puts my mind at rest.
Thank you, Chancellor. Okay, 50.
Yes.
Yes.
I query about the housing technical and the overpayment. Sorry, housing benefit training. This was actually. Maybe. If you're better, that's okay.
That's all right. Switching chairs today. So yeah, I've got my chair for a minute. I'm going to swap over.
Yeah, so obviously, as you'll see, there's a significant pressure across the board in terms of housing. And so, yeah, you've got the 600 element here. There's also the 3.5 million I referred to earlier. Actually, a lot of the 3.5 million is related to housing benefit as well. So if I just cover that bit initially, I know that wasn't your question, but 3.5 million, like I said, a large proportion is to do with the fact that the subsidy we receive from the Department of Work and Pensions does not meet the costs that we're incurring in terms of housing people, because obviously there's that requirement to house everyone basically, as many as possible. Naturally, that leads to us having to incur higher costs of accommodation that has alternative use and development. So that's the bulk of the other one. This one is more of a specific aspect to do with the way that we reclaim from DWP. It isn't a new pressure, so to speak. It is a pressure that we've had historically, and we've managed in year. We've been able to absorb it, offset it against other in-year savings. But there was always going to come a point where there was a need to recognise that with a specific budget. So it's to do with a number of different elements to do with the way that the claim to DWP is put together. But for example, there is a threshold. So DWP permit a certain number of local authority errors, for example, because they accept that because the claim is so large, the process is such a high volume of claims, there will always be errors made. And they will subsidise those errors up to a certain threshold. But as soon as we go over that threshold, they don't subsidise any of those errors at all. So, for example, part of that 600 is to do with that, and I think maybe about a third of it is to do with that. In terms of the other elements, it's to do with where DWP have thresholds to do with where they overpayment, we can't recover it, they will subsidise that, but again, only to a certain extent, and beyond that, not necessarily. And some of those things, whilst there are things we can do as a local authority in our benefits section to improve our processes and try and stick within those thresholds, some of it is beyond our control because it's to do with essentially recovering costs from tenants and the like who change position to be able to pay their housing costs. But there's that lag between that happening, us finding out, and then being able to recover that money. So yeah, it's without taking up quite a large chunk of this meeting, it's quite hard to explain, but it's basically, yeah, it's to do with that. It's the kind of, it's the admin side of doing those claims of where in some cases we're exceeding the thresholds that the TWP put in. But obviously, if we can improve our processes, it may be possible to take some of that back in future years. If we can, under certain thresholds, then the net cost of the council will be less than circa 600,000 in the same years.
Thank you for that answer. Thank you. And so, would you care to say that she mentioned that DWP funding, underfunding on our social housing is adding, that's a double blow, really, isn't it? When your first introduction, when you glossed over the change we face ourselves, it's a direct consequence of underfunding Westminster, and it's just another blow for us to absorb, isn't it?
So, well, yeah, I suppose comment on the Westminster aspect, but yeah, DWP have a subsidy rate for housing, which is, as I understand it, loosely based on a sort of typical social housing rates. Whereas because of that requirement from Welsh Government to house everybody, as I said, it means that we're incurring costs over and above your sort of average social housing rate, for example, particularly during the pandemic where there was a need to use bed and breakfast and things like that. Naturally, they're more expensive. During the pandemic, Welsh Government funded that, and they have provided a grant subsequent to the sort of worst part of the pandemic being over, but that hasn't been sufficient either. So we continue to incur those high costs. So the DWP subsidy rate, like I said, it's based on the sort of, I guess, the more historic situation where then the subsidy would have broadly covered the cost of housing, but the step change that we've experienced over the last couple of years mean that that's now inadequate, and creating a large part of the pressure that we've had to be able to. Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Watkins first, then Councillor Al-Uami, and then
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned the 600,000. A portion of that is the fact that we exceeded the threshold. What are we doing to reduce that then to ensure that we don't get caught again?
Yeah. So for example, the benefit section has moved recently to finance. So there's been a bit of a change in management arrangements, and so we are reviewing processes. There's a new manager overseeing benefits, so there is a lot being reviewed to try and improve processes. So yeah, this isn't the council saying we just accept that this is the way it is, but this is recognising an existing budget pressure. But there is work, I can assure you, there is work ongoing to improve processes and do what we can to come within those thresholds. Because as I said, more than anything, that will then release a saving in future years. That pressure will be 600, hopefully. So yeah, it isn't accepted, but this is just recognising the fact that it's a current challenge. The team are under extreme pressure because they're also responsible for a lot of the Welsh Government grant schemes, like the winter fuel scheme, some of the cost of living payments. So they're trying to juggle a lot of things. But yeah, it is very much I can assure.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Al-Uami.
Okay. Yes, Chair. Just really sort of looking at the magnitude of the problem before us, which is all to do with pay. If you look at that column on the left for this year, which is 3,558,000, it just shows really, local authorities and tremendous pressure when it comes to pay, and it is a problem that can only be solved really at a national level, or maybe regional level in our case, because even when you look at that 4%, it's actually not even enough when it comes to, for example, teachers' pay. I did say earlier it was 5% last September, and looking at what's happening nationally, people in the public sector are trying to catch up really with years and years of no pay increases at all and high inflation. And then when it comes to planning budgets by councils, you could see really the huge effect that can have on their budgets. I mean, that's a huge amount really compared to the other sums we see on there. So, not to necessarily make sort of a crude political point, but when it comes to pay, in the public sector, really, it can only be solved at a national level, really. Otherwise it's going to hit our budgets year in, year out.
Thank you, Councillor, for that, for allowing to comment on that. Councillor Payne, please.
Yeah, please forgive my ignorance on that relatively new scrutiny. You've mentioned temporary accommodation and the stresses and pressures of needing that a lot more of a foreseeable future. Do the heads of departments work directly with Newport City Homes and housing associations? Which we meet with them on a regular basis to discuss kind of strategic plans looking ahead, because they're going to again, experiencing similar problems, so that's parents struggling. So is that what they? Yeah.
This, we're playing practical chairs here. So obviously that sits across the council in terms of how we work together with partner agencies. And yes, we do very much work with the social landlords that we have, private landlords, local city homes. I mean, I can just answer from a social services and probably from an education perspective is we absolutely work with those colleagues closely to look at the options that there are available in terms of temporary and indeed permanent accommodation for citizens.
And you sat there with them and have you got plans in place?
We're working with them literally on a day by day weekly basis. I mean, I just speak from a sort of almost anecdotal. Natalie's in contact with them almost every day in one way or another in terms of how we can look forward, how we can plan. And similarly, Sarah, in terms of education and the impact it has on children in our schools. And then I suppose from Mary's perspective, from an adult services perspective, how it impacts on our older residents. And for Caroline, in terms of prevention and inclusion, how we manage homelessness across the city and how we can support our colleagues working in the homeless teams.
Yeah, because I noticed as a ward councillor, there's been a significant rise in contacting me with concerns about their housing situation, either moving in from one larger, more appropriate accommodation on fears being evicted and then coming to
Yeah, those relationships do exist in a very much way of day-to-day relationships, operationally and strategically, we have those relationships.
Yeah, just to make a comment first, I think that I think Councillor Bright raised a very good point. There is a lag between the department and working pensions payment into housing benefit to where we are realistically as well.
I think that's fair to say.
That is a lag. Hopefully, it's a very good point. Maybe we can pick this up and we can bring this back and see how big a lag is it and what's being done to sort the lag. If that makes any sense. There's the fallback here, but we're all aware that rents are being increased and we need to keep that pressure up wherever it needs to be so to ensure that we're not picking up any shortfalls because of something outside of other people's control. Yes.
Sorry, so it's Mary from adults. So it's just really in terms of partnership work, it's also about preventing homelessness. So it's about working very robustly with our social landlords and across all partnerships in terms of aids and adaptations as people get older and their needs change, about making sure we're providing as much assistive technology for them to remain in their homes to prevent them becoming homeless or having to move. So yeah, that's a very robust part of it with occupational therapy, the disabled facility front, and a whole range of partnerships.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on page 50? 51. 51. 52. 53. 4. 5. That's it. 55. We now move on to pages 57. I believe it starts on page 60 and it's appendix 2.
Page 59.
59. Oh, yes, okay. There we what we'll do at this stage, we will go into a break if anybody needs it. So we're going to 5 minutes. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, everybody.
And we're back live, Chair.
Okay, thank you for bearing with us. And we continue on page 59. Yes.
About the impact of cuts to Oakland's children's home. And I've had representation from a resident.
Let's stop.
Is a she is a she looks after children with disability, so she's a foster care, but specifically the children she's looking after disability, and those children go into Oakland's on a regular basis to give her respite care. And the impact of cuts to Oakland's and to this facility for her would be huge, not just on her, but on the ability of the council to foster children. And has that been taken into account sufficiently?
As Sally kind of mentioned earlier, thanks to Druitt, these are really challenging times, and I think that all the proposals that each and every one of us have put up in terms of savings, have been made, knowing that there will be an impact, but sadly we're in a position that we have to do so. Just to kind of reiterate what Sally said earlier, that we hope to do that with minimal impacts. So, for example, with all of the proposals that Children's Services have put up, what we're not doing is closing a service. What we're doing is reducing the level of support that we can provide. With the view to, if we are able to obtain additional monies from Welsh Government, so we'll explore that as on a regular basis, whether or not there are monies available to us, that we can increase the provision. Welsh Governments, certainly within social services, very often provide council the department with money that we could then increase the level of provision. But as Sally said earlier, I will be honest that there will be an impact. It will be needs led, so the greatest need will receive the service, and we will have to explore other things such as respite foster care for children that perhaps aren't using the Oakland's facility or aren't able to at that time. But yes, there certainly will be.
Okay, there's a number of people indicating. Jan, can you turn your Councillor Tabby, can you turn your camera off, please?
It was
Yeah, I got it. Councillor Cleverly, can you turn your camera off?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Aluami.
Chair, just a sec. Yeah. I was just going to make a comment that in the public consultation survey, that some of these cuts are actually explained, obviously because they are out for public consultation. So you can actually appreciate the impact more than what you see on the agenda here. So let me give you an example. On page 60, is it? Yeah, where it says about, adult services, short break service for all the adults, formerly known as day opportunities, and £600,000 being highlighted there. When you read it like that, it sounds as though it's something, we could do, we could have always done, but we have decided to do it this year. But on the public consultation explanation, you get some idea why maybe this is to be done. And actually, it kind of say, you know, should we be really doing it? Because they do matter a lot to people, you know, these short break services. And what is going to replace them? Or who is going to give these adults those breaks? So, you know, when it is a one-liner like that, it doesn't really have the impact, or it doesn't cause the impact for you, you know, to look at it as you would have done, you know, if you had that explanation in there. So I'm wondering, why haven't we got that information before us as well?
Yeah,
Chair.
Just, well, yeah, Okay, we're looking specifically, and I believe that you're looking at it as well, the Oaklands Councillor Ali, specifically at this moment in time. I want to deal with that. I know we have numerous other people coming in and indicating. Councillor Jan Cleverly.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I definitely need to speak on Oaklands. I had a parent ring me yesterday in tears. Her son has got autism. He's been at Oaklands Centre for the past 2 years, and she's absolutely heartbroken that this service is going to stop for her son. You know, he's got severe autism. Her husband had to give up work to help look after him before he attended Oaklands. And it's their lifeline at the moment. You know, they're desperate, these people. And I feel really sorry for them if it is stopped. Or, you know, how can we be stopping these services to people who really need it? You know, and that's my comment, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. It's on the same subject of Councillor Jewett said in regards to the resident that's actually fostering the individual. And obviously, it's others, parents got their own children there as well. But I'm concerned that if that foster carer doesn't do it anymore, foster any disabled, that child will have to go into care, which is going to cost a horrendous amount of money. And I think this needs to be taken into effect, the impact it's going to have on these parents and foster carers that use this service. The impact by not having the service is going to be possibly their children going into full-time care, which that figure is minimal compared with that cost. And this is, I think, that we need to take that into consideration.
Councillor Pym.
We completely understand you don't know any of these cats, and if you had a choice, I'm sure you'd be investing in all these services. Again, I'm assuming worst case scenario was closing the centre completely. Best case scenario at the moment, what would it be for you looking forward? Would you be able to open it a few days a week, or would it be restricted times? And have you also considered in the short term trying to recruit volunteers to just help out on the day? People volunteering their time for free with experience of this area, just to keep the centre open. Is that something you could explore?
Okay, do you want to come back in then? Thank you.
Absolutely. You know, if we weren't in the position that we were, obviously we wouldn't be considering any of the provisions across social services, because we all recognise that, you know, the importance of it, and you know, it's really challenging times for everybody. You know, everybody accesses public services. In terms of just the point in terms of closing Oaklands, the proposal isn't to close Oaklands. Like with all the proposals, it's really to reduce the offer in order that when hopefully we come out of this, we can rebuild. In terms of their highly skilled workforce, in terms of those that offer the level of care to these children, you know,
could consider volunteers to assist, but in terms of the level of care, they would have to be qualified individuals in order to offer that level of care. And yes, you know, in terms of the model that we're adopting, the proposal is Monday to Thursday, and then we're looking to reduce the offer, I believe, from 19 to 11. So that's what we're looking. But you know, in the event that we are able to secure additional funding, then obviously we could increase that offer over time. So this is the proposal for here and now. But if we are able to secure income from elsewhere, then obviously we'd look to increase that.
Yes. Just picking up on the reduction, I got it down as 21 to 11. But
it may well be.
I think it's 21 reduced down to 11.
Yeah.
The offering of a Monday to a Thursday, that's only offering 3 nights. So you're reducing from 7 down to 3, you're well over 50% reduction. I think committee is quite clear that the economic and social impact upon families will be devastating if this goes ahead. We've offered no alternative to assisting in provision for this because you can't. I understand that because this is respite care. This is the last bastion of sanity for a lot of families. This is where they get a normal life back, but it's also where our participants in respite actually, it's akin to a sleepover on a day out for any of our children who are not in this situation. It's a part of normal life. It supports the family, and there is no one else for these people to go. We, as a committee, and I've read this committee, and I'm looking at their faces and listening to their voices on that screen, and I absolutely agree with every single one of you around here. This is not acceptable. This is not acceptable because this will have the devastating effect that you've heard. And we will not allow this to happen. And with the strongest voice, I guess one of our strongest recommendations, and please committee assist me in this, is that we have to be a strong voice to Cabinet because these are proposals at this moment in time. That's all they are. They're not reality. And this committee feels so strong, I know that, about the impact. It'll have impacts on our partners' health. It'll impact on, it goes on. What are the projected costs if 11 or 10 of these families end up in some other kind of care provision? We need to look at the long term here. This is really what we've come down to. And Councillor, please.
What reductions in funding Oaklands will do is actually to hit the weakest of the weak. And I think this particular cut really does need to be considered, and that we need to push that this is be considered.
Does any other, we have a hand up there, and that's Councillor Aluami.
I think that's a
legacy. Any other member of the committee have any okay. Any other strong views on this issue? Because this will be formally one of our recommendations, Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, I understand what everybody has said, but what concerns me is the impact on the other services that this creates.
Yes, yes,
And this is what I say, the long-term impact is going to be far greater
yes.
in regards to them. I think that it needs to be reviewed again. You know, I understand the financial implications that the service has, but at the end of the day, what happens financially later on down the line is going to be very great.
Anyone else? That are no further comments. I don't think that anybody's left around this table without any uncertainty in their minds the way that this scrutiny committee feels about any reduction to the services in Auckland and to respite care. It's not only the financial impact going down the line, it's the social impact. These are real people. We have a moral duty as corporate parents to step up to the plate. And this is one area that's sacrosanct to this committee. Thank you. We'll move on from that.
Yeah, I got another item on page 59.
Please do.
Everything across children's services. Obviously, there's a reduction there. Is that reduction in ambulance outreach we have vacancies at the moment, or is that redundancies?
Does anyone want to pick that up?
Yeah. So in terms of children's services, there are a number of vacancies that unfortunately we're unable to recruit to at this moment in time. But what we've also done is like a call for voluntary redundancy, which we will be considering then to look at, you know, how we can be a little bit more creative in terms of, I suppose, roles and responsibilities of staff across the service.
So we will endeavour to attempt to look at securing that saving without redundancies that would be against the vacancies as far as we can in both children's activities.
That figure reference to the vacancies we have at the moment, or possibly?
Yeah, vacancies change all the time, so the vacancy literally hour can walk out and they'll be different this afternoon. So it's a point in time that we looked at staffing. Could we, across children's and our adults, currently secure that saving across against vacancies? Yes, we can.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, page 60. '61. Okay. Okay, individual proposals, begin again.
Sorry, Chair, can I? Chair, page 61, I think you want to through it quickly.
Yes, Councillor, on your way.
Thank you.
We don't
Yeah.
consider.
I'm not, yeah, no,
Yeah,
we don't.
it's about the council tax, isn't it?
Can I just, this is not before us, it's in there, and I know it's in there.
All right.
And I wish it wasn't in there, because it is confusing, but it's not before this committee today.
Fine. Yeah, I understand it's a council matter, Chair. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 63. Okay, these are the yes. Hands up then.
Yeah, I remember. You were right.
Why have we done it? Just a second. Councillor Ionawr, can you turn your camera off, please? And can you take your hand down? Please, it's confusing. Your hand is anyway.
So take next to it, Chairman.
Yeah.
You can't remove that.
The camera moves hand.
But with the tickets, it shows you've spoken.
Okay. Can you turn your camera off, Councillor Ionawr, please? Thank you. 64. I got any problems, Councillor Lardy, maybe you cannot, thank you. $65. Six.
You said enough about.
I think we've said enough about the Oakland, and we've made this committee, David's point, without any concern. 67.
April 2020, which are
Yes.
Needed to review proposals. We're on 69. We're on.
Can I just ask? Yeah, can I just ask, with respect to growing space, I mean, it's been going on for years, that charity, and it's very, very good. It's proved its value to people with, you know, sort of mental issues and all that. And it's a great way of dealing with some of the, you know, the problems for the clients there. So we are deleting our support for it more or less, aren't we? Or we're reducing it considerably. Who's going to pick up the tab for that then?
Yes.
So in terms of mitigation for growing spaces, we do make a considerable contribution to the whole project, but actually it will continue through other funding streams, but it will be on a much reduced level compared to what it can currently do.
You say it will continue to.
But it won't be a little bit like what we discussed before. It won't be to the same ability in terms of how many people it can support.
Okay, will they be able to keep what they have then now in Tredegar House and all that?
There's no reason why that shouldn't be able to continue, but that would be a matter for growing spaces to look at their own in-house service, how they want to go forward with it.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Spring.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we had a meeting with Growing Spaces last Friday at our ward surgery, and they presented their case to us, and it was, you know, it's pretty conclusive, the value they provide at the moment, and also any cuts that are likely to take place will have a knock-on effect and will actually increase costs further on down the line. You know, what they're doing is a preventative service in terms of mental health provision, and they are extremely concerned that, you know, if they lose any funding, they can't do what they're supposed to do, then that will then lead to further complications and cost pressures, you know, not just for the council but for the area. So yeah, so extremely, you know, they're extremely concerned about whether they can carry on with the scale of the service that they are providing.
Thank you, Councillor Spring. Okay, Councillor Watkins.
It's on the same subject, Chair. I am concerned and I am aware of the good work which they do there. Perhaps the officer can give us some clarification on what sort of finance reduction that they're talking about. Is it coming, or is Newport City Council reducing or cutting the finance altogether, and they have to find alternative funding from somewhere else, either a grant from a charity or government or something like that? And can, if that is the case, can Newport City Council assist them in regards to needs for those grants, either now or in the future?
Yeah, and we think it's a fantastic service, and it really has some great benefits for people with significant mental health issues in Newport. So it's not an easy proposal to put forward. However, we are looking to mitigate what we're doing. So that is about having a very close relationship with mental health services from the NHS, and actually they've got a big role in preventative mental health services as well. So we would assist them, and we can see what else that would be available for them to go for. But also as part of the mental health partnership, we've already spoken to our health colleagues about if there were any opportunities, because they obviously see the benefit in the citizens that they're supporting who are open to them with serious mental health issues.
Just to comment after that, yes, it's a local organisation, and I think we need to look at those.
I think so. I think there's the Road Garden project up at Lanfratford Grange. Are we tied into that in any way through our health partners?
I think health are involved in that, but from the council.
It's health run. Is that something we should be involved? I don't know. We should be involved in everything, but I'm with you on yes.
Growing Space is a fantastic organisation.
Yeah.
The work that they do to support people who have mental health issues is fantastic. I mean, opportunities to work in the garden, to grow things, to sell things, to run the shop, all sorts of things that they do that are important for people's health. And this is it's local, it's based here, and the value that they provide for residents, local residents, is immense. So again, I want to support Alan, Councillor Screen, and Councillor Watkins in support of this particular organisation, and how the impact of the cancer will be devastating.
It was first brought about, I believe, by Sir Sandy Black. He was heavily involved and championed it for many years. I'm not quite sure if he's still involved in this. Sandy Black, former chief executive of NCC, and brother of Tony Blair, I believe.
He's involved at the moment. I am too.
But it's certainly been around a long time, and it does add a lot of value. It gives people a sense of purpose and a sense of belonging when they're travelling through the mental health journey, and a sense of protection and comradeship together. And so but I'll leave it to the committee. You can make your recommendations, and this, if the committee's strong, I'll bring you in now. If the committee's strong, then it could be another recommendation to cabinet of the PIP.
Well, I'd be interested in meeting the Growing Space and experiencing the same kind of, not presentation, but some of the councillor Screen. Sitting down with them, having a chat with them, and seeing, as a local councillor and volunteer myself, to see how I could help. I don't know if any other councillors sat here that like to meet with them. And again, work out if we can do something collectively moving forward to help support them.
I'm sure that's something Councillor Screen can arrange for any member of any member of the committee, and otherwise would like to meet with Growing Spaces. Do we have a recommendation? Do you want to formulate something at this moment in time?
Yeah. Can I recommend that now the officers go back and review the situation, see if they can come up with some sort of, not reducing it to the volume which it has at the moment.
We have a second.
Yes,
okay.
I second that, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. 69, page 70. '71. '72. '93. '4. '5.
Yes, Chair, 75. Yeah. I think this is the one I brought earlier, shorter breaks. You know, when you read the blurb there, you know, it talks about what happened when we had COVID and all that, but it says once restrictions eased, a small facility-based service began to operate from an in-house residential home to complement an outreach provided. 3 model service has been renamed the shorter break service, the good practice term for supporting unpaid carers. This proposal considers service changes to focus on offering shorter breaks for older adults and their carers where there is the greatest need. You know, when you look at the saving there, which is £500,000, it makes you wonder then, you know, so for the last couple of years or whatever, you know, since the restrictions ended, were we then, you know, giving a service that was sort of extravagant? I don't think so. I think it was minimal then. So, you know, when we talk about the most sort of like deserving cases, it really makes you wonder, you know, £500,000 was spent then on others that were not so deserving. So I am not happy about deleting this. You know, we're talking about short break for people and their carers, and they need that. And to be honest with you, I mean, I can accept maybe a slight reduction, but £500,000 reduction sounds to me like almost, you know, decimating the service that we have currently. And it is a service that is needed for adult, you know, sort of elderly adults and their carers. Chair, so I'm not happy about that one in particular. And this is what I meant earlier, when, you know, you don't see it like you see it in the public consultation write-up. It looks, you know, innocuous. It looks as though it's something maybe we are overdoing currently, and we can just reduce and save ourselves on the authority £500,000.
Any other, thank you, before I bring anyone in, any other member on that?
Yes, I had a question. Is this we're talking about Spring Gardens?
It's not the residential part of Spring Gardens. It's the annex, which is used for short breaks to enable people to have some time away from their carers and for their carers too.
Yeah.
Is that part of it going to be closing altogether? So we would look at what we would do with that in terms of provisioning it either within part of the residential home or whether there's something else that could be done there. But that's currently out to consultation, and we've got very active consultations with carers and other carers.
So please tell us how you feel.
Horrific.
How you feel about this?
A lot of residents I speak to are really concerned about it. They have their parents themselves going there being looked after. What's going to happen to them?
You know, in terms of mitigation, we will continue to work with all those carers and always with everybody who attends short breaks. They've all got eligible care needs. We have they have a right to have a service of us, and we're going to have to go back and look at how else we can support them. In terms of from the carers provision, there are a few other things that may happen, and they won't be into the same degree as it is in terms of service. But we certainly wouldn't leave them high and dry. We will continue to work more individually to see what else or how we can mitigate this going forward. But yes, I agree, everybody
There's
is.
also the staff there putting through some good thoughts.
Yeah.
Thoughts also hopefully they listen to.
Yeah.
It's shocking. These are the realities of where we are today. But this is no no real difference to Oakland's. There's no real difference, committee, to Oakland. Just different people in different places with relatively the same needs. These are real, genuine people. And there comes a time when keepers. They all have care plans, they all have needs met, they all, you know, are we failing in some way if we stop providing this provision, whether it is statutory or mandatory or whatever, you know? And we're just failing as people. I beg a belief here. We're failing as individuals, as a society. I know this is a scrutiny and one mustn't be as passionate as we are, but we can see the whites of these people's eyes. We know what they're like. And do you feel that we're failing? It might be an unfair question for us. You don't have to answer it.
Does it? And they do their very best in need of good circumstances. And I think what Mary's point about that all of those attending Spring Gardens, just like all of those attending Oakland's,
yeah.
The Spring Gardens, that's adults with dementia, with a very particular need in terms of their families and, you know, prospect of recovery. And I think in terms of looking at how we continue to work with those families, the domiciliary care that we continue to provide and how we support them, but it is immensely difficult. And I mean, I can see on your face how hard this is in terms of a proposal, and I think we all feel that. We know the service, we know it's hard, but it's trying to work with those families, with those individuals to look at how we mitigate them. But hard.
Well, again, it is a proposal committee. If you want to make a recommendation to cabinet, now is the time. Councillor Amy?
Yes, I would propose that, Chair. Yeah.
What are you proposing?
Well, I would propose really we look at this more carefully. You know, I don't believe we were extravagant with our provision before in this area, and I think £500,000 to me feels like we are really reducing it considerably. So I would propose really you know, if we have to make some reduction, it will be really a very small one, not as much as it's been said there. You know, while I'm on this point, Chair, I would really urge members, particularly of the Scrutiny Committee, to really go through the public consultation that is still there until February the 2nd, because the way it's set out there, you can see these things probably more in totality than you see them, you know, as I said, in these agenda papers here. And you could see cumulatively, really, it could mean quite a bit of change, quite a big withdrawal of service for, you know, what you're saying as well. Real people, we're dealing with real people, real individuals who sort of might have been looking forward for a day break or an opportunity, as it's being called there, and now is going to be taken away from them. So, you know, I would propose really that this committee support that, you know, this issue, same as in the Auckland case, being looked at, you know, and if a reduction has to be made, it has to be a lot smaller than what is proposed. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that proposal? I guess we do. We can send that, we'll go forward to cabinet as a recommendation for them. Again, okay, thank you. Yes, there's on the second, page 75. 76. 77. 8. 79.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, it's 79. In relation to educational psychology saving, I'm the question we really don't have enough educational psychology for years. Is that correct? We already.
We have discussed in education psychologists, yes, yes. I'm not members of education psychologists are trained to allow for recruitment. We've got vacancies in Newport currently, and those vacancies are not being filled. And we've recently had education psychologists leave the service to go to another authority, and that's a post that won't be refilled that you see in the proposal. However, we are able to maintain the resource that we currently have at this point in time. It will affect the service, yes, and we reflect more education psychologists. Of course we would, because that would allow us to do some of the preventative work rather than focusing on casework and on report writing. However, we do have capacity to maintain the statutory elements of our work, and in doing those people clinics and report writing. There is the preventative work, which I'm sure all our colleagues here who work within a preventative arena. Those are the things that we won't be able to do because we won't be recruiting to those vacancies.
Thank you. So when we need input from an educational psychologist, where do we go?
When we
need input from one?
Well, we have our own team of education psychologists. We're not losing our team. So we maintain our core team. And we can, of course, if we have financial capacity, we can, seek support. And as can schools, because schools are also able to seek additional EP services independently of the local authority if they have funding and finance to do that.
That's what I wanted to bring out. Thank you. Yeah. Page 79. Yeah. 81. 8. 3. 4. Now, right into the week. Fees and charges for people with no equity. There we go. It's page 85. Okay. On page 87, you have before you fees and charges going down. What is proposed, the increases and percentages there. Yes,
just for clarification, really, with the essential increase, so I think like 27.8%, 26.7%. How is that? Yes. Yeah. What's the reason for that particular percentage of those services, or is it? Yeah. How's that? It's a big jump.
I think the cost of the services that I've worked out is obviously business services, which are expensive services.
So that would be in charge for.
Yeah, the provisions that we've had, the staffing costs, the energy costs, the food costs, all these things that we're going to, given the nature of these services, we can't ask for residential homes to turn the heating on between 6 and 6 o'clock. We have to provide areas where they feel most of the that is the other thing to bear in mind is that there is support for those residents who are accessing these services in terms of what they get. Although it looks, from a citizen's perspective, you look at it, you think, oh, but actually, if you just think about how this works out for most residents, it will reflect the just it's a small assurance, but assurance of service.
Thank you for that. Is there anything else on that page that we wish to question? Okay. And 88. That's the blank page. Item 6 is here.
Yes, so
we can read the newspaper. Although once we have certain heads of groups here, no. On our, if you could just bear with us a second, we're going to go into the scrutiny report. I noticed that we've excavated the heck of a lot. And I will be expecting by the end of our term this year to have all those answers answered about the next meeting. Not the next question. But we need them.
We will get those answers.
Right, yeah.
yeah, of course.
For all of us.
Can I thank you, all of you, for your contributions today, and support. I know it's been a harrowing moment for all of you having to go through this. But can I assure you that whatever comments we make here, they're not personal. Don't take them personal. They are professionally put to you as a service and as a council, so they're not personally attached. No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll break for 2 minutes till the room becomes quiet. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. We're still live.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to continue now with the this part of the matter cleared. And so, thank you. I'll hand over to you for item 6.
Yeah, if we just collate up on the recommendations, just to make sure I've got everything.
Okay.
Committee one, thank you. Thank you, Sally. Very much, thank you. Thank you, Chair. The 3 main recommendations I have from committee was the concern about the impact of stopping the open services and the future impact of that on health and social care, and the committee want that to be reconsidered. The second recommendation I've got is surrendering of the growing space charity funding. Obviously, I've noted you all think it's a valuable service and the cuts now will increase costs in the future. So the recommendation for that to be reviewed.
Sorry, would be okay to seek a meeting with Growth Space. Oh, do you want no, just I can make sure.
Yeah, you can, that's the you could arrange outside.
Also on that recommendation and on the first recommendation is the impact, the total impact which you have to get across cabinet on families, on the welfare, the whole impact of what these cuts are. And these growing spaces as well, because that's a safe environment when people are travelling back to what is deemed as not needing that level of support whenever they decide.
That's the start of it, Chair.
Absolutely right.
Then it goes on to places like Oakland, and then it goes into.
Absolutely right. Absolutely spot on. And he's right. And that's what we want, this passion to be brought across to them somehow in words. I don't know how we're going to do that.
What I will do is I'll make sure to note that it's not just the financial implications we're worried about, it's the impact on residents.
Residents and families.
So, oh, absolutely. So I'll word it in a way that does reflect that.
Councillor Screen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just in regards to growing spaces, I think it's important to emphasise it's a preventive organisation, and any cuts to funding will then store up problems which are going to be, you know, even more costly in the future. So I think that needs to be emphasised, that you know, you're going to store up problems, cost problems in dealing with mental health issues, you know, for the future. So in a sense, it's a false saving, I suppose. Yeah, it could be argued. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, it is. It is preventative. It's also a recovery, and there's lots to it. But you've got that. And the third one
was the concern about the reduction in short break service.
Yeah.
On the impact on residents and costs, and recommending that is reconsidered as well.
Yes.
Is there anything I've missed? Anything anyone wants to add? Are we happy with what happened?
Oh, sorry.
All right, yeah. These cuts have been forced upon us. We need to make a comment that these have been forced upon us from services outside of control from the Westminster government.
Unfortunately, we can't make those comments. It's political. I mean, no, some fact. I'm not going to go into the debate here. It's very misleading debate. I'm not going to open up that political debate here. It's not what we're about, and we're dealing with what we have here now is the real impact of where we are, and the political side of it can be taken elsewhere. Let's hold that side in a bit. I want to try to steer you and keep us as good as we are on this committee. And thank you.
We are good.
And we are.
Yeah, Chair, you know as well as I do that there are lots of things that are in the reason for how it was cut, but Councillor Bright is right.
No, you can't see it. You see, you're actually stretching it and stretching it again, and we're going to move on now. So, you want to? We go on to the. Yes. Yeah, it's all new now.
Like Joe already mentioned, there's no real update on the actions at the minute, aside from what you've all had.
Okay.
Sally's obviously said she'll get us the information we asked for as soon as she can. And aside from that, we've got 2 more meetings in the year. We've got one on the 28th of February for a prevention inclusion update, and the Children and Adult Services regulatory inspection report. And then following that is the additional session that members asked for, the information session on the Eliminate programme, the Step Up, Step Down, work being done with registered social landlords, and the unregistered, and an update on the unregistered children's placements. And that's where the forward work programme and the actions will stand for committee. Is there anything anyone wants to add there? Any updates, people?
What's the date after February?
It's the 14th of March. Yes, that'll be in diaries, yeah.
Okay, if there's nothing else before us now, we're happy with that work programme. If you think of anything, or anything comes to your mind, email. And so we're going to close the meeting down. So thank you for participating, everybody, today. And we'll see you again soon. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.